the Low Post podcast. It's Monday afternoon. Ramona Shelburne, how are you?
How are you?
So here's how I am, Ramona. You really want to hear how I am?
I do. I really do want to hear.
So I'm thinking about the NBA, as I normally do, and the playoffs. And I'm sitting here, I'm looking at this piece of paper of notes I have right here, Create the Crazy Person notes on Clippers Suns.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about how the Clippers haven't released their injury report yet. So, I can't say for certainty who's playing and not playing with their season on the line. And as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about a lot of X's and O's stuff. Like, I think the Suns offense has started to show some signs of getting a little bit of rhythm, particularly in the second half of game 4, despite some hiccups and some heavy minutes and some depth issues, but they're starting to look a little bit more cohesive. Then I'm thinking about, boy, this Kawhi thing and this PG thing, and how if they lose this series and they're down 3-1, fighting like hell. But can we just say it, fighting like hell?
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook, I owe you an apology. I wrote you off as a winning player. And although your team does not look like it is going to win this series, you, Russell Westbrook, along with some other people, are doing your best to make it a real series. Make the Suns earn it. Norm Powell, amazing in game 3. Not so much in game 4, but game 3. Then I'm thinking about how if they lose this series, all the late nights and excitement that we all felt 4 years ago when in back-to-back lightning strikes, the Nets signed Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and turned a moribund franchise into must-watch television. And before that, or after that, rather, the Clippers hit the literal Las Vegas earthquake, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard together. How all of that in 4 years may amount to 4 total playoff series wins combined for both teams in 4 seasons if the Clippers lose. And the Clippers are going to lose, I think, if Kawhi and PG don't play. And then I was thinking about how in 3.5 hours, just a little thing, the Milwaukee Bucks are down 2-1, and Giannis has played 11 minutes in the series, and he's coming back. This podcast will probably go up right before that game, so we're not going to talk about it. So I will say this, Ramona, if the Bucks lose tonight, the entire axis of the NBA universe is flipped on its head. I, for one, am assuming they're going to come out with a fierce urgency and win in Miami and even the series at 2-2 and calm the waters a little bit, but that's another injury. Then I'm thinking, boy, I got to start watching film of Boston-Philly, series we've all been gearing up for a long time. Then I remember, boy, Joel Embiid, he's injured. And then right as I'm thinking all of those things, Adrian Wojnarowski tweets that De'Aaron Fox, clutch player of the year, averaging 31.5 points per game in the playoffs, carrying, along with Malik Monk, the Sacramento Kings offense, as Domantas Sabonis kind of struggles to find his way against the best interior defense he's faced all this season, has a fractured index finger, tippy top of his index finger in his shooting hand. I think personally he's going to try to give it a go in game 5. That's the vibe I'm getting, but you just don't know. It's his shooting hand and it's his dribbling hand and his everything hand. And Ramona, you were at game 4, in San Francisco. I almost said Oakland. Apologies, Oakland.
I flew into Oakland. It's okay.
Which I thought was, give or take, the game of the year in the NBA and one of the craziest NBA games I've ever seen. And I was so excited to talk about game 5. And now, just as it was with Ja Morant's hand, wrist, whatever, in the Memphis Lakers series, which resumes in 5.5 hours, this injury is more or less the whole thing. Like, I just don't think the Kings can win 2 out of 3 against the Warriors. I don't know what their offense is with a limited De'Aaron Fox. Now, maybe he won't be that limited. He did play the last 5 minutes or whatever of the game with this injury and made a critical 3-pointer and a floater and some free throws. What have you heard on De'Aaron Fox, and how are you, Ramona? You're not injured, are you?
No, I'm doing okay. Got a little allergies going on, but everyone does this time of year. So I was at the game. I didn't know De'Aaron was injured because he was amazing the whole game. And I've talked to folks in and around the Kings and close to him since this came out, and it's they're all bummed. But I think the general consensus is he's going to find a way to play. If there's any chance that he can play, he's going to play.
That's what I meant by give it a go. I'm not necessarily guaranteeing he's going to play. I'm just saying I think he's going to do the stuff gearing up, trying to give it a shot.
But then, listen, I am not a basketball player at the level that De'Aaron Fox is, but I have broken a finger before. That hurts. That really hurts. And especially catching the ball, shooting the ball. I know the idea is, okay, when you shoot the ball, it usually touches your index, your middle finger is really the big one, right? That's the one that gives a lot of power. But then the index finger is probably the second most important. And if it's the tip, that's when you shoot the ball and you flex, like that's where you're going to feel it. So I think it's just going to really hurt for him to play through this. I've seen Kobe Bryant play with all sorts of mangled fingers before. I mean, there was one where he like popped it back in on the sideline and then he was like, well, I'll just shoot differently. Like, how do you just shoot differently after all your years in the league? Like, it can be done. It's just going to really hurt. And I don't know how effective he can be as a shooter that way. But one thing that I don't know if people paid enough attention to because of the way that game ended, because of the Draymond coming off the bench and then Draymond guarding De'Aaron, was Keegan Murray was really good in that game, Zach. And I don't know, like Mike, I feel like I don't know Keegan Murray very well. I'm not around the Kings enough to know if this is always how it is, but every time I talk to Mike Brown about Keegan Murray in a press conference, or I see him talking about him, I think he's like really hard on Keegan Murray. Like he was like, yeah, I cussed him out after the first couple. And even
Sabonis is too.
They're all really hard on him, which I relate to because that's how I was as a player. Like my coach always used to yell at me and I was like, why is he so hard on me? Like he's so mean to me. And I think it's a compliment though. I learned to take it as a compliment because A, that means I think you can take it, and B, they care. My coach used to say, like, when I stop yelling at you, that's when you should worry. Like when you're not relevant anymore enough for me to get worked up and yell at you. So Mike Brown was like pretty openly yelling at him and then talking about Keegan Murray in the first 2 games of the series and first 3 games. And then boom, game 4, he was awesome. And I feel like that's why they care so much about him, because we're going to learn a lot about him in this next game, because they're going to have to rely on him and Malik Monk. And I still think with that crowd in Sacramento and the way that they competed in game 4, they really competed that game. This is still a really good series. It's not a little luster's been taken off with Fox getting hurt here, but I wouldn't hand this to the Warriors by any means.
No. That's why I said, I don't think they can win 2 of 3. I don't even say that strongly because the Warriors have just been so bad.
They tried to lose that game last night. My goodness. Well, like, have you ever seen 3? I mean, did you see Draymond Green and Bob Myers on the court after the game? Like no. So from Draymond talked about it a little post game. I talked to Bob post game about it too. Bob was like, "Hey, you're gonna have to tighten up a little bit here." Like Draymond was left Steph on an island, which made him have to call that timeout, and obviously they didn't have a timeout. B, Draymond let De'Aaron get off a clean look from 3 late in the game when they're down 4, and give him the 2, crowd him a little bit. I mean, you're up 4. The one thing you don't want to do is give up a 3. He gave him way too much space there. And then even the last play, I don't know. There was so much about the last couple of plays. One, Steph shooting the ball with, I think there was 10 or 12 seconds left there.
We're gonna get there. I mean, because I want to do the full on dissection, because it was the game of the year. Yeah. I'm just saying their offense has been very Fox dependent. Yeah. It's been like Fox plus one shooter gets hot and everyone else chips in enough to get them over the finish line. And if Fox can't be like Fox, it's just going to be tough for them to score enough to win 2 out of 3. But to get to 7, absolutely. And if they get to 7, then it's at their house. So I still think even if he doesn't play, like, let's put that scenario in play. If he doesn't play,
Yeah.
I just don't know that they have enough. If he
Right.
plays at like 70% effectiveness, I do think they have enough to have a shot at 2 out of 3, but I would pick the Warriors. I picked the Warriors in 6 at the start of the series because Sabonis just hasn't been able to get off in this series. Herter hasn't been able to get off. Harrison Barnes hasn't been able to get off. And oh my God, as many have noted, the poetry of Harrison Barnes potentially hitting that shot would have been off the charts.
I know.
And I thought it was going in on TV. And if he had made it, I want to live the alternate universe where he makes it just because Harrison and I know Harrison. He's so polite and nice that I bet if he had made it, I just hope he would have just lost control of the niceness and the politeness and just gone totally off about how he was the one cast out. He and Andrew Bogut were cast out to make way for the superstar, which they should have done 100 times out of 100, but it just would have been fun it's always fun to watch your most polite and under control friend lose control there. Anyway, so there was that.
It's like when you were watching Croatia in the World Cup, right?
Yeah, that was.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed watching you. I would say you lost control. Several times. Yeah.
I did. And so anyway, none of those guys have been really able to get off other than Monk. And Davion Mitchell's had a fantastic series, but it's not like he's going to get you 25. No. It's not like he's replacing the offense. So they're going to need Fox's points somewhere. But
Keegan Murray, man, that's the guy.
That's the point I wanted to make. What respect you have to have for the Kings at this point. I know they lost both games in Golden State, and everyone was like, oh, game 3's been, they should win game 3. Draymond's not playing. That's a tough ask. That's a motivated Warriors team at home. You're coming in, young team, first road playoff test. That's a tough ask. How many times in the fourth quarter last night did it feel like the Warriors had landed the Warriors knockout punch? And by the way, their offense for portions of that game was not as crisp. Like the Kings have made them make tough shots. The shot making from Clay and Steph and Poole last night. And I'm talking about like one-on-one, like we got nothing else but our individual talent against your individual talent. And we're going to make really tough shots. Euro step layups for Poole. Steph had that 1-3 where he dribbled up like with Harrison Barnes climbing on his hip. Like they look like two fish swimming next to each other. And then Steph just stopped and hit a 3. It's like that's a normal thing to do. Clay hit a bunch of ISO long twos. Like they made them earn that win last night. And every time it felt like the Warriors had knocked them out, they came back right to the end with big shot after big shot after big shot. Fox made a bunch of big shots and Keegan Murray, as you said, like the response of that team in that environment was super impressive.
So this is, this from going to the arena there. The press seats are kind of up a few sets of stairs. And generally speaking, when it's a blowout, you want to get down the stairs before the game is over because you're going to get stuck in the foot traffic. Like
nothing. It's very frustrating to get stuck in the foot traffic.
Everybody's going up. Like all the fans are coming up the stands, and then there's supposed to be a press elevator, but that just gets completely jammed the whole time. And so
I'm just anti-elevator. If there are stairs, I want to take the stairs.
Yeah, and there's not like good stairs to use there. So there's always this game of like, that they got this, right? Like I can get up, I can get down to the press room where the interviews are before the game's over. And I was 10 seconds away from getting up. I was like, okay, I think they got it. Let's go. Let's come on, everybody on press row. Let's all go together. And then I think that's when they challenged the call and they lost the challenge. And I was like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't get up. Maybe there's still a little left to be played here. And I think all of the unraveling starts with the challenge that they should not have challenged, right? Like Looney laid out Malik Monk. And I thought Monk was, initially I thought, oh, Monk sold that. Yeah, like it didn't. And then you even saw Draymond kind of on the broadcast saying to Kerr, I think he was moving. Like I think there was a recognition that Looney was moving. Don't challenge that. You don't want to lose that call, that timeout there. It's not worth it on that challenge. And that just starts the whole thing because they lost the timeout. Steph didn't realize they lost the timeout. And I mean, I was kind of trying to make notes. Like Kendra Andrews and I were in the press room trying to rewatch some of these plays. You know, you go on NBA.com and where the stats are, and you watch each one of those plays. And it was like, it was even stranger rewatching it all, knowing how it ended, because like we all thought the game was over. I mean, it looked like they had it. And then they just, this series of self-imposed stupid plays, the timeout, the shooting the ball. Like I think Steph was a little rattled by calling the timeout, and then he goes back out there and they could have run I think they could have run it down to 2 seconds. And he goes and throws up an off-balance floater. And I know Steph likes to do the hero ball stuff, but that was like, whoa, take some time off the clock. Like run the clock down. And they, like Harrison Barnes was really open there. Like that was a good look that he got from three.
It was a great look. Great look.
They didn't need a three there, but
every coach in the NBA in that situation signs up for a look of that quality. Like against the defense, against Draymond Green defending you at the point of attack. Like that's a good look. And it just is so fascinating on the margins that this stuff turns on.
So let's also, I'm curious your take on the defense on that last play. So at one point, like De'Aaron Fox was cooking everyone. And finally, I think Chris DeMarco and Dejan in the huddle go, you know, we should put Draymond on him, which is unbelievable that Draymond Green can guard somebody as quick as De'Aaron Fox.
Ramona, I've been waiting for this the whole series. It was one of their go-to matchups in the regular season. I even said on the show on NBA Today last week, and I was in LA, it's sitting there in their back pocket, and I thought they would use it by game 3. I was surprised it actually took them this long to try it.
And now they did it. And so you have De'Aaron, you have Draymond on De'Aaron, and he's already given up a 3 because he sort of usually lets you try to take a 3 because he doesn't want to foul. But this time you definitely cannot give up anything there. And I'm thinking De'Aaron's just going to drive on him. Like you got the big out there in the lane. They tried to clear out as much as possible. Drive, try to foul. Like you try to draw a foul. I mean, like if you're a guard who's as quick as De'Aaron and you got Draymond on you, that's what I would do all day long. But he doesn't drive. Steph, he waits for the switch. Harrison walks over. Steph's on Harrison, and you see Steph kind of, oh gosh, I can't switch. And it was just like two guys who played together for so long for Steph to get out of that situation to where Draymond was still on him. So they double Fox, leaving Harrison open. And it was like, how quickly that could have turned. It could have gone so differently. Like if De'Aaron reads that quicker, he could force Steph to have to take it. He could have driven on Steph. And it was like just watching that unfold. I'm like, that's the series right there. Well, that's the game.
You think of how much different does that Harrison Barnes shot have to be? Like a half an inch?
It wasn't off by much.
And that's maybe it. That's maybe it. That's the Warriors going into the offseason with a whole lot of uncertainty, with a payroll that is about to become, in terms of roster building, unsustainable because of this new CBA that's aimed squarely at the Warriors and the Clippers.
Yep.
That's it. It might be it. Just like last year, Jimmy Butler's shot goes in. I don't know what happens to the Celtics. That's an all-time bad collapse in game 7 of that series, in game 6, but especially in game 7. Like that's the margins that decide these games. But I again, the Kings they showed up and they kept fighting, and I have all this stuff, these X's and O's about what to look for in game 5, and I just don't know how much is relevant without Fox. But can we revisit the last like 2 minutes of the game?
Yeah, let's do it.
Fox also, by the way, the finger thing, you know, everyone wanted to see how the young Kings would respond to a situation like this. And Doris Burke rightfully, I think, criticized a couple of their decisions late in the game, like Monk going kind of headlong for a layup as like, and Harrison Barnes even pulled a 3 pretty fast, but he was looking for a 2-for-1, I think, with like 35 seconds left, and they got the offensive rebound. And she was saying, you know, here's a young team that hasn't been there before. I actually, on balance, thought they got good shot. Like Fox missed a long 2 that was pretty open with like 2 minutes left, and he missed a floater that was really open with 1:20 left. Good shots for him. And this finger thing has me looking at those shots in a different light. Like, does one of them go in?
Yeah. I want to
Okay,
watch
so
the video again because I think he hurts it with about 2 minutes left. There's a play where he kind of shook his hand. So I have to
someone
watch it.
posted it was like 4.5 minutes left.
4.5. Okay.
At least that's the theory. So okay,
Yeah.
so here's let's just go blow by blow.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
About a minute and 45 seconds left, I think. Looney misses the dunk off the
Yeah.
split action that they've run 100 times.
Yep.
The Kings come up with numbers, and I think they're down 1 at the time. Something, I don't know what I've lost track of what the score is. That's when Draymond kind of interferes with Harrison Barnes at the rim. Harrison Barnes misses. The rebound goes to Sabonis. Draymond blocks Sabonis. The Warriors come down. They run a Steph Draymond pick and roll like at half court. Double Steph. How many times you can close your eyes and see it? Double Steph, pocket pass to Draymond. Looney's man steps up, bounce pass to Looney. Or I don't know. I don't think they even bounced it to Looney. I think Looney's man stepped up, and then Wiggins curled in around Looney as Wiggins' guy who was Monk went to account for Looney. Wiggins curled in, makes a floater. And then, of course, the ending sequence is just, I think that probably put them up by 5, maybe. I can't even remember anymore. But the ending sequence was the timeout, which was like an out-of-body experience. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Then the 3. And to your point, the 3 goes in with 27.7 seconds left. And I have said this over and over and over again. Teams who get the ball back with like a 3 or 4 second differential and the lead, and the other team decides not to foul, which is probably the wrong decision in like cold analytical terms, should just hold the ball until there's 1 on the shot clock, heave a moon ball 3.
Yeah.
And if the 3 hits the rim, the game is probably over.
Yeah. It's going to be a long rebound.
I've come to realize that it must just be impossible to do that because nobody ever does. I think Mike Conley did it in 1 game for Memphis. I think in the playoffs, and it might have been against the Warriors. That's the only time I've seen anybody do it, and it worked. But I've just come to the conclusion that either defenses are too smart about forcing the issue, and that's why I thought Fox was really smart to go for that steal. I don't know if he meant it, but he forced Steph Curry to get into gear, and Steph was like, "Oh, I guess I should shoot now," and they got the ball back.
Yeah,
and I think more teams should just hold it and launch a moon ball. Nobody ever does it. I guess people aren't wired to do that. And so he shoots way too early. And I'm sitting there like, I cannot even believe the Warriors are falling apart. Like the whole thing was just,
but there's still 10 seconds
insane.
Left. Like 27 minus 24. We can do the math. Right?
3.7 seconds.
There it is.
I've always said 4 is the sweet spot where it becomes a very hard decision whether you foul or not. 5, 6, 7, you can play it out depending on what the score is. And this was a 1-point game. So it's the minimum possible score, obviously, to have this discussion. 4 is like, maybe are we really going to be able to get a good shot off if we even get a stop here?
It's probably not really going to be 4 when all is said and done.
The Wiggins floater I mentioned with 125 left put them up 126, 121. So they were up 3 when Draymond made like 14 consecutive insane defensive plays to keep the game. Then the technical, then the 3. Then it was just an absolute
the 126 121. That's when I wanted to go downstairs. That's when I was like, yeah, we could go downstairs. We could beat the crowd. No, glad we stayed. I mean, the defense though, like Draymond guarding De'Aaron Fox is an interesting card because I think once you play it, like you have to decide, are you going to always play it? Because the Kings will just make an adjustment now. Like that's not something you can just do the whole time.
Well, I mean, one thing is the Warriors, when they've gone to Fox, Green on Fox, if Looney's on the floor, they've actually been willing to switch the Fox Sabonis pick and roll, even if it means putting Looney on Fox. And if that's the case, and this is why Fox is, if he can't be like 100%, it's why it's such a blow for them. I'm just trying to engineer that. I mean, the Warriors will stop doing it if Fox hurts them enough, but he can blow by Looney. And
how good is De'Aaron Fox with his right hand? Like, how good is he on drives to the basket, finishing with his right? I think he's a pretty ambidextrous kind of guy in terms of finishing at the rim. obviously not shooting. He's not going to Kobe Bryant out there with. Remember when Kobe used to shoot left-handed?
Yeah, just for fun.
Well, no, because he hurt his shoulder.
I know, though, that and just for fun.
Yeah, for fun. I don't think he's going to quite do that, but if he can go right and drive right, it shouldn't matter that much. In terms of if Looney switches onto him and he's in those situations, I think De'Aaron Fox plays. I think he's a gamer. I think he's just going to be limited in terms of his shot outside, because that's the one where you're going to feel it the most.
What a series. This has been the series of the playoffs so far. And it's
also with so much at stake. Like, you're in the building and every single play you're thinking, is this the end of the dynasty? Is this the end of the dynasty? And there's all these poetic moments. I mean, I wrote a column about Draymond offering up his spot. I thought that was pretty significant. I don't know how long they'll do that. If he's right back in the starting lineup for game 5, he might be. But the Warriors are moving to a world in which Jordan Poole is a starter. They're paying him like a starter. He's probably not going to come off the bench for the rest of his career. The only question is who goes to the bench if Poole's going to start. And I know they've dabbled with that throughout the year. And sometimes it's been because Wiggins has been hurt, or they just needed some more shooting or some more offense in the starting lineup. They usually find their way back to the 2 big lineup because that's just who Steve Kerr trusts.
I wish people could see my game notes that I write during the game, that I type up each game, because I'm sitting there and I was writing. I think I think they're overthinking it, but they didn't get back to Draymond and Looney until like a few minutes before halftime. Yeah. I think they played them for like a couple minutes in the first half. And I thought, I kind of feel like I get what they're doing, right? The Kings defense has been up to task. So Bonus is moving his feet. They're switching when they should switch. They're handling the split actions. They're not getting cutting back door for the most part. And so we got to open up a little more spacing. And the way to do that is to separate Draymond and Looney. And yet, it's like that lineup works. We know that lineup works. I don't think you can go away from it to the degree they went away. And sure enough, you come out in the second half and Draymond is starting. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I don't know who if I had to guess, I guess they start Poole again just because it worked, and like we'll figure it out if we have to go early to the double big lineup. But I mean, the Kings have stressed the Warriors to that degree that they're making these kind of changes, and that again, they won that game for the most part behind incredible individual shot making, good timely defense, but not as many of like the easy Warriors kind of like, the split action pin down, got Steph and Clay a wide open 3. I mean, they got some of those, but they had to earn every single one of those 126 points.
I cannot wait to talk to Mike Brown when this series is over, whether they win or lose, because Mike was on the Warriors staff for several years. He knows those players really well. And I love talking to him about what did you learn about defending LeBron by coaching LeBron, right? I remember doing when he was when LeBron was about to break the all-time record, I called some of his old coaches, so Ty Lue and Mike Brown, and I asked him, what did you learn about defending LeBron from coaching LeBron? And he goes, well, there's no way to stop him, but he doesn't like it when you get up close to him and you get low and you're physical with him kind of low. So they were always kind of, when they were defending LeBron, like even if you put a smaller guy on him, if you kind of go at his legs a little bit, he found that to be something. And that was something you would only know if you coached him and you saw him up close like that. I think he knows some things about the Warriors from being on the inside that I'm going to be very curious to hear him talk about. Either, I don't know if it'll be an on the record conversation he'll do with one of us on a podcast, but he knows how to slow them down in a way that I don't think, and not even slow them down, just make them uncomfortable. Is that a better way to put it?
They've had to really earn it. Like a lot of they pry open some of their classic Warriors easy stuff now and then. But all right, you want to go just through a couple stats of note?
Go for it.
The series is now, Warriors are now +7 for the series total in 4 games. So it's been a very close series. Defensive oriented. Both their offensive ratings would be average or worse for the regular season. Curry, Warriors are +45 with Curry on the floor and -38 in 34 minutes with Curry on the bench. Oof. That's pretty crazy. Both versions of the Warriors starting 5 are solid plus. I'm just beginning to think it's just Curry. It's
Yeah.
just Curry's plus. If Curry's in the lineup, it's plus.
Yeah, definitely.
Sabonis, 16, 12, and 4.5 assists on 48% shooting. He averaged about 20 something in the regular season on 64% shooting on twos. So they've really limited him, and almost 7 assists. So his assists are down. Steph in game 4, the most recent win, ran 16 pick and rolls. That's the 4th lowest of any game this season. And if you do it per minute, his lowest of any game this season. And I did think they're letting the Kings get away with hiding Sabonis and Len on like Moses Moody and Gary Payton II. And even like there were some possessions where the centers were on Draymond and Draymond was playing the 5 and they ran all their cute little stuff. And sometimes you want to say, man, you can't let Alex Len get away with being on the floor. Like, use Gary Payton as a screener and see what you can get. That said, they ran more. I bet you they ran more Draymond Steph pick and rolls with Steph as the screener for Draymond than they have in any game
reverse
this season.
Pick and rolls, yeah.
That has really worked for them in this series. It's just been a fascinating chess match. And I think the Warriors have made more moves than the Kings, both because they have more moves to make. They have just a bunch of different looks they can go to. And the Kings just, they took a 2-0 lead doing what they do. And the Kings' big move before the series, and it's largely continued, was we're going to spam you with pick and roll more than we have at all in this season. And Fox and Monk have both, Monk especially has blown away his pick and roll numbers just going at Looney in drop coverage. But I don't know what moves they have left in it, and it's hard to really project because we don't know what their best player is going to. Yeah,
it feels like it's Sabonis time. Like, it feels like.
And then you ask yourself, but how? Because dumping the ball to Sabonis with Looney and Draymond on him is a losing proposition. He's not going to score enough on those guys one-on-one. They're too good.
Right.
You want to say, if you're going to run pick and roll, look for him in the pocket a little bit more. And if he's got a switch that's not one of those two guys, give him the ball. Like, there have been a few possessions where he's had good matchups and they haven't given him the ball. Give him the ball, especially if Fox is hurt or hurting.
I almost think, like, he is capable of taking the ball and running and initiating the offense from the top. Like, you could put him up top. You could give him the ball early to where he's taking people off the dribble. He's that kind of player. I do wonder a bit if the rib cage bruise, the sternum bruise, whatever you want to call that, from the stomp is affecting him at all. I know people were quick to dismiss that as theater or something to get Draymond suspended. No, he was hurt. And that I don't think this wasn't WWE where somebody fake stomps on your chest. Like, he really got stomped on the chest. And you see the last couple of games, it just hasn't seemed like the same I don't want to say energy level, but because the energy level puts it on him. He just doesn't seem like the same player the last couple of games.
Well, look, they're making it hard for him. They have 2 absolutely elite post defenders, Draymond, one of the greatest ever, and Looney just playing the best basketball of his career. The other stat I wanted to make note of, the Kings took 61 combined free throws in games 1 and 2 and 41 combined in games 3 and 4. And that's the story of the Warriors all season. At home, they foul less or they allow fewer free throws, and teams don't shoot as well from 3. And that was a big reason why the Kings took a 2-0 lead, and a big reason why it's now even. But this is, you just knock on wood that De'Aaron is going to wake up tomorrow and somehow feel less pain and feel good to go, because he's had a magical season and the Kings have had a magical season. And it would be nice to see them be able to at least give these last 3 games an honest go of it against the defending champs.
Yeah. I think this always felt like the best first round series. I was thinking Phoenix and the Suns, the Suns against the Clippers would be. I was at both those games. They were kind of a bummer.
What do the Clippers do this summer, Ramona, if they just bow out here? Both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard have one guaranteed season left next year on their deals, and they have player options for the year after that. They're obviously capped out the wazoo. All their picks are gone until, actually the last pick they owe is 2026. After that, they get control of their picks back.
Yeah.
There's going to be this it's now time to move on and trade guy at Kawhi or PG. And you just the whole league has watched them get hurt every year. Like
yeah.
Every other team who would potentially want these guys and trade stuff for them has seen this whole saga play out. Like, why am I trading all the stuff that would make it worth your while if it seems like I can't count on them play? Like, as soon as they needed Kawhi to play big minutes in the games that they've been gearing up for 2 years, he got hurt again. And I'm not saying it's his fault. It just is. They're hurt. They're both hurt all the time. Like, there's just no way to sugarcoat the reality that they're hurt. So, like, what do you think they do if they lose? If they lose,
yeah, and I think they're gonna lose. I mean, that's
I think 3-1 without
3-1.
home court advantage and your stars. Yeah. If they don't play, then yeah, you're
look,
probably gonna
Phoenix
lose.
To me, looks pretty awesome for where they are in terms of number of games played together. They're pretty good. My biggest question is just, are they playing too many minutes? Because Kevin Durant, made a joke, and we played that highlight on SportsCenter of me asking him about playing so many minutes. He goes, "How do I look tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah, you look pretty good. Yeah, you looked all right." But this is the first round, and Russell Westbrook, Norman Powell, the guys in the Clippers, scrappy guys playing hard, making these competitive, have forced Kevin Durant and Booker and Chris Paul to play way more minutes than you would want them to in the first round. They're exerting a lot of effort, but at least they're winning, and they should close this out in the next game. I think with the Clippers, two things you have to answer first before you talk about Paul and Kawhi. Number one, they're moving to that new building in 2024. I don't think you can underestimate how
for the 24-25 season.
Correct. 24-25 season. So
do you know that have you heard about the toilets, Ramona? It's got a lot of toilets. I can't wait to go to the bathroom. The Intuit? Is it the Intuit? What is it?
Intuit Dome.
Intuit Dome. I'm going to try every goddamn toilet.
We're just going to run around, go and pee everywhere.
I want to see how many there are. How many games does it take me to use every goddamn toilet in that place?
I think there's like 11,000 toilets.
I'm going to find the best one.
I mean, the whole theory behind it is that Steve Ballmer does not want you leaving your seat. He wants you in your seat cheering as much as you possibly can.
Hey, so Zach, Zach, were you at the game? Do you have any angles you want to cover? I was just in the bathroom the whole game. Sorry. I was going from bathroom to bathroom. Didn't see that. What happened? Somebody got hurt again? Oh, well, I was in the bathroom.
I mean, there's just toilets.
Okay, so they're moving to the Dome and they want to be good. Is the point?
Yeah, they want to be good. They're not
going to put a dud product into that place.
So I think that matters, right? Don't you think that matters? I mean,
look, the most likely scenario is, what the hell else are you going to do? Just keep running it back and hope that one year you get the breaks you need to break. And like everyone wants. Perk and I went back and forth about this the other day. Yes, this era as of now is a failure, given what they traded to build it. It also resulted in the longest playoff run in the history of the Clippers franchise. Like,
and it was a great run.
It's not nothing. It's not nothing.
That Western Conference playoff, that Western Conference Finals run in 2021, I went to every home game there, and that crowd has never exploded the way it did. I mean, that was the best time of Clipper basketball ever, really, ever. And,
okay, so you were saying, I don't want to interrupt you, but you were saying the Inuit Dome and something else you're bringing.
So I think they need to be good. I think they need to be relevant. You need to have some stars. And then, so if you're not really going to get that much for Paul or Kawhi this year, if you're even thinking about that, because every team in the league has seen them get injured, and so you're definitely not going to get back what you traded away. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to haunt them forever, probably, because of how good he is and how well he's done in Oklahoma City. Not to mention what those picks become,
including Jalen Williams. Okay, the best Jalen Williams.
One of, well, they're both good, but yeah, the one that's on the all rookie team, first team. I think you keep Paul and Kawhi together, because I don't think you can get back anything of real substance. And so then you say, how much longer does Ty Lue want to be around for this? Is he a happy person there in that spot? I think he's one of the best coaches in the NBA. I think the way that this has gone with the constant, just being in that press conference, I'll say it like this. mean, that press conference for game 3 where he was asked point blank, when did you know Kawhi was not going to be available? And he said, this morning at shoot around. When did you know that it was a possibility that Kawhi might not play? Last night. I mean, you could tell like this, you don't have all this communication back and forth on Kawhi Leonard. So it's kind of Kawhi's not playing tonight. It's not like a big ramp up, big organizational thing where everyone gets on the same page. That gets old after a while because it's been like that the whole time he's been here. And I'm not putting words in Ty's mouth or anything. There's a level of competition that they all know they should be at. And because of these injuries, they have not been able to. And then you get into when people get frustrated, when people get frustrated, things like this, weird things happen, right? Is that a good way to put it? When people get frustrated, weird things can happen. And so I don't know. I don't want to report anything or say anything here. I just think the level of frustration has to be pretty high in Clipperland that once again, you're not seeing Paul and Kawhi in the playoffs and in the way that this tends to play out throughout
we have
the
some
year.
breaking news. You want to talk about breaking news?
I've been seeing them. I've been seeing them pop across the feed. Two
DeJounte Murray
news.
has been suspended for game 5 against the Celtics. We will just blow right by that. I saw the video. You probably have seen the video of him bumping her up. That's a no-brainer. As soon as I saw that video, I said, he's done. I texted people on Buzz, he's done. And Woj reporting Ime Udoka has agreed to a deal to become. Now I have to check everyone's Twitter to make sure it's like the real Woj.
I know.
To become the head coach of the Houston Rockets, which means he's not becoming the head coach of the Toronto Raptors, and Nick Nurse is not becoming the head coach of the Houston Rockets. Obviously, you and I did a whole thing on the Ime Udoka situation in Boston, and this is not the time to dive too deeply into that because, frankly, like I wasn't prepared to talk about the Ime Udoka situation today. But
I can talk about it a little bit.
Go, because this is one you have to handle internally and externally in a very forthright manner of like, here's what we know happened in Boston. Here are the details. And here's why we think it's okay.
So you have to be able to answer these questions about what happened in Boston publicly and privately.
And particularly to the female employees of your organization.
Correct. And then you have to go and do that publicly. And so I remember I do call-ins with the radio station up in Canada, especially when, coach gets fired and you're the national reporter. So I said yes to a couple of these and every single question was about Ime in his past and what happened in Boston. And I could just kind of tell.
This is when he was reportedly linked to the Raptors.
Reportedly as a favorite. And I remember doing these interviews and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to go in Toronto. It's just, there's just certain media markets where I think the level of scrutiny and the type of awareness that the people, the reporters up in Toronto were all over that. Like that was, this wasn't just going to be a rubber stamp kind of thing. This was going to be highly scrutinized.
And and Eric Koreen of The Athletic tweeted something to this effect over the weekend. The Raptors are also a franchise that has been front and center.
Yes.
Placing women into positions of power within the organization and then trumpeting that, rightfully so. I know most of those women, they're all amazing, and essentially saying like, here are presenting this as evidence of how forward thinking they are as an organization.
It's also owned by Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. It's a corporate entity. So there are different HR rules for a corporate entity like that than there.
And I'm going to be totally honest right now, Ramon. I'm going to let you lead this because I haven't had time to go back and look at my notes from September, October when this was happening. So I don't even remember like the specifics of what exactly I know transpired with Ime Udoka in Boston. I mean, I can give the basics of it. I'd want to wade into that before I really, really went into this, but you continue, please.
So, I think the most important thing is you have to Ime has had all this time to think about what he would say or what he's going to say when he gets his next job interview. the situation in Boston, and this is something I wish I had the right reporting answer on, but I think it's been quite murky for those of us even who have tried to report on this, is whether or not there's anything ongoing there. I mean, is that HR investigation closed? I know they had a private, and they said that they had an internal investigation, but is that closed? Is there any civil cases pending? If there are, any lawyers that are involved are not going public with this, but all of that really matters when you're talking about how you move forward from something like this, because I'm sure Ime would have to give those answers to his future employer in any interviews he does. But then you have to be able to do that if you get hired to the female employees of your organization and to the media. And you're going to have to do it a lot. You're going to have to explain a lot. And so I just, even me doing those interviews in Toronto, I was like, whoa, I don't know if this is going to fly in Toronto. Like it was like, sometimes as the guest, you end up becoming like I'm being interrogated. Like I'm just telling you what I know or what I think. It was to the level of scrutiny that was going to get in Toronto. I kind of was skeptical after that he would really be the choice there in Toronto, as highly regarded as he is as a head coach. I'll tell you, there's a lot of franchises that want to hire Ime Udoka as the coach. He's very highly regarded, but just getting back in a very general sense about what happened there. I mean, it's without going over all the details and getting into it. First of all, I feel really bad for all of the women in the organization whose names got dragged into this that had nothing to do with it. There was all this speculation about pretty much any woman who worked in the Celtics organization that you could find on an org chart. People's names got out there, and that was rough. But also, like, if he had an inappropriate relationship with somebody who worked for him, everyone always asks this question of, why is that a big deal? Okay, if it were two consenting adults, people have had relationships. Well, it's a big deal, because even when somebody worked for you and now this relationship ends, what do you do in your career? Do you just keep them in the same position? Are you going to have to see them every day? If you move that person to a different job, is that seen as a demotion? Even if it's
this is all the stuff you and I would encourage people to listen to the episode you and I did in the fall, where we talked about the power dynamics of this and why it's more than just, they had an affair. This is when there's power dynamics at play in the workplace. And we talked specifically, now you're jogging my memory about, like, well, if she's reassigned, well, that's a whole separate potential legal issue. Like there's all sorts of power dynamics at play here.
Like, the specifics have never really come out. And I'll go peel back the curtain of how we usually find this stuff out as reporters, is that usually there's a civil case, and the attorney representing the person in a civil case will leak those details to the media, right? It'll filed in court. Those details will come out, by the person who has a civil case. So either there is one and we don't know about it yet, or there isn't one, but nobody has to tell anybody anything. Usually there's a motivation for details to come out. So I'm sure every newspaper in Boston has tried. I know I tried quite a bit to find out more of what went on. And so you get the sense that it was handled internally, and there's not a motivation to provide more details or for those details to come out. And now he's been away from the game for a little bit. I know the Nets obviously took a look at hiring him and backed away on that. The Rockets, the Raptors interviewed him. The Rockets are hiring him. And so there's no question about Ime Udoka's coaching ability.
None.
He's regarded as one of the best young coaches in this league. I want to say that I'm glad he gets a second shot, because I don't believe in just ending somebody's career over something that we don't obviously know all the details here. All we know is the Celtics thought it was serious enough to do what they did to a coach who led them to the finals. And so I'll be interested to see what comes out next, or what he says next, because that interview, that press conference, that disclosure has not happened yet.
Very interesting breaking news. And the Rockets are entering a pivotal offseason in which they're clearly going to try to get better. They owe their pick to the Thunder next season from the Russ CP disaster. And they have a good amount of young talent. And I think their young talent is actually a little underrated given how kind of messy it looked. And
Are you an Alpi fan?
I'm an Alpi fan. Offensively, I think the low hanging fruit. I think the low hanging fruit for them on offense is run more of the offense through Şengün. I don't want to talk too much about the Rockets. This is a big summer. They have cap space. We know who they've been linked to. Speaking of that topic, let's end with this. We've all been looking forward to Philly Boston all year. I'm about to talk to Tim Bontemps. I actually already recorded the Tim Bontemps segment on the Eastern Conference. By the way, I forgot to mention RJ Barrett in that segment. RJ Barrett, shout out to RJ Barrett. He's playing awesome and bullying the hell out of Karis LeVert. What do we know about Joel Embiid's knee?
So when he initially went down with this, it happened and he played through it. Okay, so it was something he played through, but you saw the injury, you could see it, it live, and he was kind of limping. But Joel falls a lot, and he kind of sometimes it looks hard getting up. So that's kind of a standard thing for him. And so you never know which is an injury and which is just him getting up slowly. But he was really sore afterwards. I think Tim Bontemps said something like he had more ice around it than I realized they even had in the arena. And it's a sprained LCL. So that's your lateral collateral ligament, LCL. The hope was it was just going to be a week, maybe two, maybe depending on how he healed and how he responded. So far, the sense I get is that he's doing pretty well. Swelling's down. He's moving around pretty good. So it doesn't seem like a serious injury, but I don't want to have any. I don't know. There's all the CLs and MCL.
Well, and as we swelling is not a predictable thing. You can swell back up with playing one hard game.
Yeah. Does he have to wear a brace now? He's got a new doctor's meeting in the middle of this week, so they'll see kind of where he is. But the injury happened on April 20th. I think the Celtics now look like they were pretty commanding 3-1 lead, and now DeJounte Murray's not going to play. So if they close out the Hawks here in 5, Saturday is when that playoff series starts. So he got hurt on a Thursday. That's
10 days, 9 days.
10 days-ish. That's a little soon. I think it was thought to be just a week, but I could see him miss game 1, depending on how he's doing. I could see that. But it'll, I know he wants to play, and I know that he'll do everything he can to try to play. I just think being there for game 1 is not as important as being there for the rest of the series. So if it is that quick of a turnaround, what Doc Rivers said the other day was right. It's 50-50. He's there for game 1, just based on how quickly the Hawks Celtics series wraps up and how quickly the next series starts.
Obviously, their margin for any kind of setback against Boston is very, very slim. The Celtics have owned that matchup, although I've said many times on this podcast, I don't put that much stock into the Celtics record over the last 4 years against the Sixers in terms of what it means for this playoff series that we've all been looking forward to. I've also said we're waiting, and it's going to happen, for the Embiid playoff scorched earth campaign. It's going to happen at some point. If they keep giving him good teams, there's going to be a season where he stays healthy and he puts it all together in the playoffs, and it's just like every game is a rampage. And I was hoping this would be that season. Maybe it still will, but given the way Harden looked, at least on 2-point shooting against Brooklyn, it's hard to imagine them beating Boston without Embiid for like 6 of the 7. They need him for almost every game, and they need him to play well almost every game because Boston is really, really good.
Boston's really good, and I think it comes down to Tyrese Maxey. Maxey has been pretty damn good. I mean, he really carried them in games 3 and 4.
Closed out the Nets.
Closed him out, and I think he's a guy that's due for the bet. He's due for the proverbial bag this summer. He's extension eligible. He's a key piece of their future, and I think this is the part where somebody else has to probably carry them in the first part of the series. Now, the first 2 games in Boston are going to be tough anyway.
Anything can happen in one game. That's
Yeah.
the thing about one game in these playoffs. It's just like it's what I said about game 3 of Clippers Suns when it seemed so hopeless. Kawhi got ruled out, and you're like,
Yeah.
one game, like Norm Powell can. I think I
Norm
said like
Powell
Norm
had
Powell can go
42.
crazy, and like you might sneak out a win.
Yeah.
They didn't, but if you can just find a way. Tatum goes 6 of 30. Like you just get a random one game thing. Suddenly you've held the fort.
Yeah.
And anything can happen in one game.
So I also think, if you want to get into the Doc Rivers talk about targeting in the NBA, about targeting stars,
I definitely don't want to get into Doc Rivers talk about not playing with your meat. I would rather talk about anything else than that. I don't, you know what? I've talked enough about groins and groin shots and flagrant
and we
fouls.
also talked about toilets today and you peeing everywhere.
And
So
there was like another one with Dylan Brooks who like, I don't know. So I actively don't want to talk about what Doc Rivers said. I don't, no offense to Doc Rivers. I just don't want to talk about flagrant fouls and people hitting other people in the groin anymore.
Yeah. When you have Joel with a knee injury, how do you stop Joel? You hack him. I mean,
clearly the Nets were, they were doing like the Jordan rules almost on Embiid. And by the way, the Clippers are beating the hell out of Durant in this series, and they're paying for it with free throws. And I actually think, although the Nuggets are miles better than the current version of the Clippers, I actually think the Suns are going to feel a little bit of physical relief against Denver. Not any other kind of relief, but I just don't think that series will feel like this one does. I don't think their guards are going to beat up. They just don't have the same kind of physical, just beat the crap out of you guys.
Yeah. First of all, Kawhi was healthy for the first 2, so he's really
the Suns
strong.
will get into that series and be like, oh, this feels a little better. Now the team that we're facing is a different animal, and that dude with the ball who's throwing passes around our ears is a whole different thing. But like this feels a little better. But yeah, the Embiid was getting beat up. There's no question.
I mean, it reminds me of peak Shaq, like because I covered those Shaq Kobe years, and like there's this part when you're really big and tall and dominant that's what people do. And I think they did it a lot even more to Shaq because he couldn't make free throws. It's I don't think it's talked about quite enough how good a free throw shooter Joel Embiid is. Like that is, you can't just hack him the whole time because he makes, what's he, 80%, 85, something like that.
Between 80 and 90.
Yeah. I mean, he's a really good free throw shooter for a big. But I do think there is, if he's going to be wearing it, if you already know he has a knee injury, that's something you need to watch in this series.
I do think Boston will not guard him the way the Nets did in terms of sending the double teams flying at him from, before the ball even gets there. I think they'll mix up defenses a little bit more. And I think what we saw from them playing Horford and Time Lord together for extended minutes for the first time against Atlanta the other day could come into play against Philly, because I like that alignment. I like the idea of like a Horford on Embiid and Rob Williams on PJ Tucker kind of looming in the background. What a day. All right, Ramona, go home to your beautiful children and your husband and stop talking to me. I appreciate you making a little time though.
Yeah, it was fun. It's good. There's like basketball everywhere in California this whole weekend. I was like at a million different games.
Oh,
like
it was
Grizzlies, Lakers, Clippers, Suns.
Then you
Warriors,
throw in
Kings.
the hockey. The Edmonton Oilers organization is in LA, right? And they're playing the Los Angeles Kings organization. It's 2-2, I believe, between the organizations.
Yeah. I think is that a hockey talk?
That's Canada organization.
Canada. The Kings are good again, and everyone in LA will jump on the bandwagon.
I didn't know they were good or bad. The Kings, in my mind, are still Wayne Gretzky and Marty McSorley. That's
really? You weren't there when they won the cup? Jonathan
No.
the Quickie, Dustin Brown? Huh? Okay.
Don't know who those people are. Ramona Shelburne, read her stuff. She's covering the NBA playoffs, bouncing around. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Let's go back to the Eastern Conference, which is in a little bit of a state of chaos. It's 1:15 Eastern time as we record this. In about 6 hours, the Bucks and the Heat will tip off, with Giannis returning from injury reportedly. And if the Bucks don't win this game, we're going to have to reconvene and talk about it and see what the state of the East looks like. Because on the other side of the bracket, in a series that has been one for someone who likes defense and physicality and ugly ball, the New York Knicks, with 2 resounding home wins over the weekend, have taken a commanding 3-1 lead over the Cavs, who could not figure out how to score. Jalen Brunson has been the best player in the series, even though he's shooting 28% from 3. Nobody, least of all Julius Randle, can make a 3-pointer to save their lives in this entire series. Tim Bontemps, how are you?
I'm doing well, Zach. Not as well as the fans who have been shutting down 7th Avenue after these games the last couple of days, but I'm doing well, man. It's good to be on with you.
Bong. The Knicks are back, baby.
I'll tell you what, the fans are back.
I like that whole crew. I like the whole rowdy crew. Don't
Well,
you wish you came to the Knicks, KD? Hey, KD.
Well, it was amazing. So for people who remember that side talk video from when the Knicks beat the Celtics in double overtime at the start of last season, people were initially thought the Knicks were going to roll through the year. Obviously, last year did not go very well for the Knicks. One of the guys in the video had this rant about KD and don't you regret not signing with the Knicks. And after game 3, he reappeared on 7th Avenue and asked the same question again in the middle of a mosh pit of people. And they were having a lot of fun. And look, man, like I saw Jeff Van Gundy before Sunday's game, went and talked to him and Breen and Mark Jackson. And I asked him, hey, like that crowd on Friday seemed like the finals back in 99. And he said, I think it was better than the crowd during the finals. Like you're obviously in the area too, Zach. Like there are so many Knicks fans here who are just absolutely dying to have a real championship level Knicks team to root for. And the Knicks aren't there yet, but they're on the path to that, I think, really for the first time since that 99 finals team. And being at those 2 games at the Garden this weekend, the energy was incredible. The atmosphere was great. And the Knicks are playing like the 90s Knicks. They're physically dominating the opponent and winning slugfests, and everybody here's fired up about it.
Look, here's where we are. They're beating the superstar guard that they didn't trade for.
Mm-hmm.
And the guard they signed for free, not money-wise, but asset-wise, other than cap space, is outplaying the guard they didn't trade for. And they still have all the assets that they didn't trade for the guard they didn't trade for. So win or lose going forward, they're looking like they're in very good shape. And yeah, the Knicks fans are going bananas, and they should. This is a sustainable, good team that is up 3-1. Both teams so far in this series are scoring at a rate that would have ranked dead last, sub-Hornetsian in the regular season. One team is just a little bit less worse on offense than the other, and that team is the Knicks. The Cavs cannot score, just can't score. Nope. Can't find a lineup they like, can't find a defensive game plan they like, but mostly they just cannot score. And here's the thing, they're down 3-1. It's bleak. Looks bleak right now. But the thing about having home court advantage is 3-1 is overcomable when you have 5 and 7 at home. You just got to win 5, force the Knicks to come back and close it out in 6. And if they don't, all of a sudden, you got game 7 home. It's much different being down 3-1 the way the Hawks are down 3-1 or the Wolves are down 3-1 after staving off elimination last night. So the big question that we have to dive into is, why can't the Cavs score, and what can they do to start scoring at an acceptable rate? I have some ideas. I would like to hear your ideas, because this offensive performance is, look, we all know the Knicks aren't guarding anybody who's not named Garland or Mitchell.
Whichever 5th guy, JB Bickerstaff, he spins the wheel and a new guy comes up and he throws him out there. It doesn't matter who it is.
Look, okay,
same result.
Look, you know what it's time for, Tim?
What is it time for, Zach?
Dean Wade. Your company's accounting, man. Dean Wade. It's time for Dean Wade, because Ricky Rubio can't cut it. Jetty Osman is minus 10,000 in the series. Karis LeVert is fine and needs to play. Isaac Okoro is fine and needs to play a little bit more. Danny Green, I'm sorry, it hasn't worked out. If there's going to be a third, it might be time to resurrect Dean Wade.
You know, it's funny. Dean Wade is a guy nobody really knows about, right? He's sort of a nondescript. He sounds like a NBA 2K created player, right? There's this guy, Dean Wade, who's on the team. But that being said, sort of a significant part of the story of the Cavs this year, I think, is that he hurt his shoulder earlier in the year and he just never got right. Because he had the skill set to be the exact guy that they need. Sort of like, obviously, Lauri Markkanen has shown this year he's a far more talented player, but they essentially last year had Lauri Markkanen be a big wing who could stay in the way on defense and hit open threes on offense. And that Dean Wade at least had the ability to do that in theory, and physically he's just never been right. And so I don't think we're ever going to really see what that could have looked like. But look, that's been, our buddy Brian Winters has been talking about this all season with the Cavs. That's been the story of the Cavs all season. They can't find that fifth guy.
That was the story of the Cavs the minute they made the Donovan Mitchell trade. It's like, can Isaac Okoro shoot? And if he can't shoot, what are they going to do? And they haven't answered the question.
They haven't answered it. And to your point, you look at that game yesterday, game 4, the Knicks were running away from anybody who was catching the ball in the corner, letting them shoot it, double teaming Donovan Mitchell, going at Darius Garland. They're like, hey, one of these guys hits 6-7 threes, fine. We'll live with that. We're not going to let these guys get going. I mean, the Cavs did have some success with some small pick and rolls earlier in the series. I'd like to see him go back to that a little bit more. The one time they had success.
Let's stop there, because that's the most interesting thing that's happened in the last 2 games.
Yep.
The small pick and rolls won them game 2.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they targeted Jalen Brunson. The whole series has just devolved into, where's the little guard? Bring him to me. That's the whole series. It's just like, it's kind of boring if you don't like that kind of basketball, because it's just, all right, where's Darius Garland? And then, okay, where's Jalen Brunson? And then in game 3, Tibbs decided, I'm not going to make them hunt Jalen Brunson. I'm just going to put Jalen Brunson on Darius Garland, because otherwise they're bringing him up into screens. And I'm just going to say, here's Jalen Brunson on a platter for your point guard.
Yep.
And JB Bickerstaff in game 4 said, that's interesting how that worked for them, because we stopped bringing Jalen Brunson into as many pick and rolls. Let's do the same thing. Let's put Darius Garland on Jalen Brunson so they don't have to hunt him. We'll give our guy to their guy on a silver platter. And it didn't work. And I think that it didn't work speaks to the difference between all of these guards. Garland and even Mitchell are really good. Obviously, they're incredible scorers, but their one-on-one game is different from Jalen Brunson. They're not a bruising, physical, ISO, mid-rangey type players. Donovan Mitchell can be that player with a head of steam. That's not really Garland's game. Although I do think the Cavs need to lean a little bit more into our spacing is either way. Let's just let these guys cook a little.
Look at you bringing
I'm fucked up. It's Monday. I'm tired. I'm jet lagged. Let's just let these guys cook. Let these guys cook one-on-one a little bit. I do think they need to try that, but they're more liable to get good shots in rotation. In other words, let's set a pick and roll with Brunson where they got a hedge. We catch the ball on the move. Brunson's like rotation. I don't need that. Just give me the ball, and I'm going to do my footwork stuff. And so it's been interesting to see how both coaches did the same thing. And for one coach, it worked to kind of confuse Cleveland's offense because this weapon was taken away from them a little bit. And for the other coach, it didn't work because Jalen Brunson's like, oh, cool. I just have Darius Garland on me now. That's great. I don't have to look for him.
Well, and to me, the word you used when you said bruising and bullying, that's why the Knicks are up 3-1 in this series. It's not, to me, like there are offensive issues for the Cavs. There were plenty of them, obviously. But the Knicks are winning this series because they are bullying the Cavs at both ends of the court. They're the far more physical team.
Hold on. I've got a news bulletin.
Okay.
Mitchell Robinson he just pushed Jared Allen out of the way and got another offensive rebound. Even though the game is not going on, Mitchell Robinson got another offensive rebound.
I mean, look, coming into this series, I thought the 2 biggest keys were, could Mitchell Robinson dominate the glass, because the Knicks were one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league, and Mitchell Robinson was the second best offensive rebounding big in the league behind Steven Adams. he is completely, and the Cavs are a bad defensive rebounding team, even with the two bigs. Mitchell Robinson has smoked them inside. And Josh Hart, other than the one game when he was dealing with a sprained ankle, has absolutely terrorized the Cavs with his physicality at both ends between guarding Donovan Mitchell on defense and just relentlessly hitting the boards on offense. That's why Cleveland is losing this series. They are getting manhandled at both ends of the court. And if that doesn't change, that has to change before you fix any of this other stuff. Because if you're going to run out there this Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen lineup for so much of the game, which they are, and you're still going to be getting killed on the boards and losing the physicality battle, that's the whole point of playing with two bigs, is you're going to win the rebounding battle. You're going to be the more physical team. You're going to be the bigger team. And they're just getting beaten up by the Knicks. And it's really shown throughout this series.
All right, let's be clear on a few things. Number one, the Knicks are rebounding 37% of their own misses, which is like, it's like having two Steven Adams on your team.
It's just wild.
They're getting to the line at a rate that would have been number one or number two for the whole season. And they're very good at that. And they're winning that battle. The Knicks bench has been phenomenal and wildly outplayed the Cavs bench. Now, partly that's because Brunson plays a lot of minutes with the bench. But if you
can I pop in real quick with that?
Pop.
In two of the three Knicks wins, Emmanuel quickly didn't make a basket, including yesterday in game 4. And after the first half of game 1, Julius Randle is 15 for 52 from the field and is 6 for 25 from 3. If I had told you those two things before the series started, you would have said this might have been a sweep. At minimum, you'd said, well, the Cavs are definitely going to be up 3-1. Like, they're going to be in control of the series. It's just wild to me that the Knicks have put themselves in this position when two of their key guys, and the bench has been great, but I think Josh Hart has come in and been incredible whenever he's played. But it is just amazing that some of these foundational things for the Knicks have not worked very well. And like you said, Jalen's not hitting threes. Like, the Knicks haven't shot the ball.
Nobody's
well
hitting
at any
threes.
Point. Right.
Nobody's hitting. The Knicks are shooting 27%. The Knicks are shooting 27% on threes. The Cavs are shooting 31%. So it's not even like the Cavs can be like, well, the Knicks will cool off from three. They're shooting worse. The Knicks are shooting worse. Quickly has the best plus minus in the whole series, plus 41. Toppin, who closed yesterday over Randall,
he's been great.
Has been fantastic. Hartenstein has the second best plus minus in the whole series at plus 23. And that's partly because they're playing well. Partly because they're playing a lot of minutes with Brunson, and the Knicks cannot score any baskets when Brunson sits. They have their offensive rating without Brunson. If I read it to you, you would think I was kidding. It's so bad. And partly because the Cavs bench is a disaster zone. To that point, Mobley and Allen combined plus 10 for the series. The Cavs' best 4 players have played 98 minutes. That's a little bit more than half the series. They're plus 12 in those 98 minutes. Every other lineup is getting destroyed. They just can't find the fifth guy. So I guess let's go back to the big question. How can the Cavs score more points and who should play?
I mean, I think some of it does come back to the physicality part, right? Like the Knicks, because the Knicks are winning the physicality part, they're getting offensive rebounds, they're getting foul shots, they're able to grind the game down. I think the Cavs, at every possible opportunity, need to get out in transition. They need to run. I think they need to try to get, they had the one time they had success in game 4 was when they started running pick and rolls at the start of the second half with Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen, and they were getting Mitchell Robinson away from the basket. Now, the reason that worked is because Julius Randle was basically playing it in cement and just watching either Darius Garland or Jarrett Allen get to the rim for a layup or a dunk over and over again, which is, I think, part of why he was not on the court in the fourth quarter. When Obi Toppin played very well and Tibbs rode him to the end. But they have to do that. They have to get Mitchell Robinson away from the basket. They have to get out and run in transition. And the other thing is, Donovan Mitchell just has to be, in particular, a lot more aggressive. Like he missed some open shots in game 4, but if you told me that in a game at the Garden with the Cavs season on the line, Donovan Mitchell was going to sort of be invisible, especially in the second half, where he didn't even really try to make his imprint on the game, I would not have imagined that would be the case. If anything, I would have thought it'd been the other way. You'd have been trying too hard to really do stuff with the ball. And obviously the Knicks were throwing a lot of doubles at him. He was making the right play. Guys were missing shots, but it was pretty surprising to see how, I don't know if passive is the right word, but how uninvolved he wound up being, in particular in the second half of that game. I just never imagined that we would have seen that.
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell, after game one, when he was outstanding, has scored 50 points in 3 games. So 16.7 points a game on 20 of 48 shooting. And he has 9 free throw attempts, not makes, attempts
Right. Attempts
in 3 games. And I think part of this is, look, the spacing's just not going to be good. It's not going to be good.
No,
You have the two big guys out there. It's just, they've lived with this all year. Clearly, JB Bickerstaff is hesitant to put Okoro out there with the 2 big guys and have 3 total 0 shooters on the floor at the same time. I think he's going to have to play that group more because Okoro's just too good defending Brunson and really the only good option they have defending Brunson.
Heck, at times in game 4, he was actually aggressive attacking. You know, he would catch the ball in the corner. He would attack the rim for some layups. Like there were stretches where he looked okay out there offensively.
He will make a corner 3. Like if the Cavs are going to come back and win this series, he's going to have 2 games where he's 2 of 5 on corner 3s. It doesn't have to be, you know, he turns into like Danny Green for 2 games, not like Spurs Danny Green, not this Danny Green. He's just got to hit a couple corner 3s. And you know, look, if you're going to have 3 non-shooters on the floor, it's got to be those 3. It can't be Rubio, Okoro, and another big man. That kid, like that's over. They're just not even going to guard Rubio. They're going to pretend Rubio's not on the floor.
Right.
But I think these guards are just going to have to be more aggressive. And to your point about bringing Mitchell Robinson into the pick and roll, one thing I liked in that stretch from both Garland and to a lesser extent Mitchell was they drove at Mitchell Robinson, head down, decisive. And look, I get that's hard. Mitchell Robinson's gigantic. Josh Hart is behind you if you're Donovan Mitchell on your hip. Like you feel that. He's a big dude. Not, you know, or if it's Garland, it's Jalen Brunson, who's a small dude. But and then you get right to the foul line and Mitchell Robinson's waiting for you. He's got his arms spread. There's Obi Toppin in the lane, not guarding Evan Mobley. There's whoever not guarding it. And it's kind of like, A, too bad. You're going to have to make hay out of this. That's what you do. You're a star guard. And B, I did think there were a couple possessions where if you get that deep in, like there was one where Donovan Mitchell attacked a drop. He kind of snaked it like Chris Paul likes to do, left to right, and pulled up for an 18-footer. Because that's he looked around and he said, here's Mitchell Robinson. Karis LeVert's in the weak side corner. They're not guarding him. His guy's in the lane. I can't get any further. I have to take the shot. And that's cool. He's got to take it and make it. There were a few possessions like that where I thought to myself, there's like 15 on the shot clock. Pass the ball to Karis LeVert wide open in the corner, because even if he doesn't shoot, let him pump and go and just like get the machine moving a little bit. Mobley had one where he forced an ugly jump hook and Donovan Mitchell was wide open in the corner. Like on some of these possessions, they're one pass away and it's not like a great option. It's not like you feel like, oh, I'm passing to a knockdown shooter or someone who's going to dunk the ball. It's just a pass to like, just keep it moving and see if we can get it moving a little bit. And I feel like they could stand to do that. But to your point, bringing Jared Allen up, particularly on empty side pick and rolls where the help assignments are a little more complicated. You saw them during that stretch. They didn't just like walk it up and run a pick and roll. They got Garland running off flex screens and coming up so that he's got a little airspace before he gets the ball. Just more of that, more pace, a little bit more creativity. They just got to crack it open with like sheer star power, I think, at some point.
They have to. I mean, look, like you said, this team is built on the defensive presence of the 2 bigs and the offensive presence of the 2 guards. That's what got them to this point. The defense has been pretty good. It's not like the Knicks are going crazy offensively. Now, obviously, the Knicks could have a better shooting game, so could the Cavs, but the Knicks have more guys who are going to potentially hit shots. But Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are good enough to take over games and win games, and they have to do that. And by the way, obviously, it's not looking great for the Cavs right now, being down 3-1 in the series. But the thing that I would probably be most frustrated about if I was a Cavs fan, and I assume the Cavs are as well, those 2 games this weekend were winnable games. The Knicks did not play great in either of those games. Like
no
they
one's
played
playing
super
great.
hard.
No one's playing great.
Right, but my point is, it's not like the Knicks played an A game and won at home, right? They played a couple C+ games and won at home. Like they played super hard. They've been dominant physically in the series, but there's a lot of money left on the table for the Cavs. And to me, it's obviously you got to look at it as a one game at a time thing. But like, if I'm the Cavs, I go home and I think, look, I couldn't have played worse in these 2 games of the Garden. Both games were tied in the third quarter, despite playing terribly for the first half in both games. Like, if they come out and execute the way we're talking about and fix some fairly basic stuff, they can absolutely win game 5. And then they got to just win 1 game at the Garden. Like you said, it's not like they have, if you chop it up like that, it's more manageable to think about than, well, we got to win 3 games in a row. Like, I do think there's a world that they do it, but they just have to, like you said, there's some of this basic stuff they just have to do far, far better, because we know what the Knicks are going to do. The Knicks are going to be playing incredibly hard. They're going to be crashing the glass. They're going to, Jalen Brunson's going to be doing his, Moses Malone or Hakeem Olajuwon, dream shake footwork moves to get shots. Like, we know what the Knicks are. The Cavs have to get back to who they are, and they got a chance.
Here we are in the year of our basketball gods, 2023, and Tim Bontemps mentioned Moses Malone and Hakeem Olajuwon.
Well, I misspoke about Moses Malone. I misspoke about Moses Malone,
and I didn't laugh. That's how good Jalen Brunson has been. I didn't laugh.
Well, look, here's the other story. To your point about the guards, second year in a row, Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell are meeting in the first round of the playoffs, and Jalen Brunson is killing Donovan Mitchell. Like, that's the story, really. Like, Donovan Mitchell, the Cavs got Donovan Mitchell to win them games like this. And people in New York wanted Donovan Mitchell last summer because they wanted to win games like this. And game 4, Cavs down 2-1, Donovan Mitchell went 5 for 18, and Jalen Brunson had 26 points and hit huge shots down the stretch and led the Knicks to a win.
The other thing I would like to give the Knicks credit for defensively is the Cavs realize that they're just getting strangled. The spacing is smothering them. And so if you watch, there'll be a main action on the ball, like a Garland 2-man game, a Mitchell 2-man game. And on the weak side, the Cavs are trying to occupy the Knicks defenders with what coaches call fluff, which is just decoy action. Like, oh, here's Evan Mobley setting a pin down for Karis LeVert. And the Knicks are just completely like, that's cool. We don't care. Like, you're not fooling us with any of this. We're just ignoring it completely. And there has to be a way for the Cavs to exploit that. Like, you can't just let the Knicks, you got to run that stuff with some intention of like maybe actually using it if the Knicks are not going to guard it. And to that point, there was one possession in the third quarter, about halfway through, where this is just simple stuff, but it's hard. It's hard. This is like really intense basketball. The Knicks are an amazing defensive team in this series anyway. They were actually like below average by a bit in the regular season. When Mitchell and Allen on the right side of the floor ran a pick and roll. And I think this was just improvised. I don't think there was any planning to this because it was late in the shot clock. And Mitchell Robinson came up because it was Jared Allen screening for Donovan Mitchell. There's a lot of Mitchells, too many Mitchells. Okay. And Donovan Mitchell, instead of attacking it, which I've been saying he should do, immediately was like, all right, Mitchell Robinson's now at the 3-point arc. Boom, swing. Darius Garland caught the ball, lane open, isolated on Brunson, and beat him off the dribble. Like, setting up Garland to isolate with the rim protector already gone was, I think, an accident, but a really smart accident that if I were them, I would try to engineer a little bit more. But yeah, they just got to be a little better. And the Knicks, because the Knicks are going to start hitting shots soon. I'd love to see the Knicks find ways to get Randall going, because this Randall thing is, we all knew the playoff crash was coming to some degree, but this is just like this now he's recovering from an ankle injury. He's banged up. I realize that, but there are ways to get him going.
Well, that's the thing, right? So I thought whoever won game 3 was going to have a massive advantage going into game 4 for 2 reasons. One, it's obviously a super physical series. So on a quick turnaround, if you can win game 3, you have a chance to really have some momentum, which you don't always do in a 7-game series because it's such a short turnaround. It's basically a 36-hour window. And, the downside of that for the Knicks was Julius Randle just absolutely did not look right in game 4. And you have to wonder, Tom Thibodeau said after the game, he's still feeling this ankle. He certainly did not look like he could move around great. And with a couple days between these games going into game 5, you would think that it would give Julius a chance to get his legs under him and play a little better. Because, yeah, like I said, that's the crazy thing. He has been very bad since the first half of game 1, and the Knicks are still in control of the series. If he has a good game in game 5 or game 6 and he starts hitting shots and they start hitting threes, it's going to be very hard for the Cavs then, because like we said, this series is really just about trying to get to 100 points on both sides. It's just such a struggle for either side to score that if the Knicks can get Julius on top of some of the stuff that they're probably going to have automatically from how hard and physically they're playing, it's going to make an uphill climb for the Cavs that much harder.
Evan Mobley's short roll game is like short circuited. Like something just malfunctioned in his brain. Like he gets the ball in open space and he's like, okay, I'm going to throw the ball now, and it hit backboard. Like this, he's just like, is it a floater? Is it a pass? Like nobody knows. I will say, I've heard from a few executives in the last 72 hours as the Cavs have fallen a little bit apart, kind of parroting the line of, how come they didn't do anything at the trade deadline? Are they like, look at the Knicks who went out and got Josh Hart, traded a first-round pick, real stuff for Josh Hart.
I'd say the Knicks are happy they're giving up the 23rd pick in the draft for Josh Hart right now.
And these people are saying, well, why couldn't the Cavs, like, they didn't really want to upgrade their team at all? Like, what were they doing? And on the one hand, they looked around. Like I heard names worse than Josh Hart. I heard like Joe Harris, who can't make a shot in the playoffs for whatever reason. But you look at the Cavs, they don't have any first round picks to trade. They traded them all for Donovan Mitchell. They have literally cannot trade a first round pick. They have some extra seconds, right? They have got but they're like Warriors seconds and other seconds. And they don't have like much fungible salary than anybody wants. They're also only $1 million under the tax. So like the easiest way to like make your team a little bit better just on the market, which is all they need, is like, who wants to cut money? Who wants to give us like a decent player and to cut your tax bill? They can't even do that. I'm sure there must have been some move they could have done. There's always some move you could do. I just don't know what it is or what it was. I mean, I know they were looking around at wings, like at the kind of middle bottom of the barrel. They didn't get any because they just don't have much to trade. I don't even know if you remember what you heard about them at the deadline, but that's going to be a storyline that comes up now if they lose this series, and particularly if Josh Hart plays a big role in knocking them out of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is sort of the choice the Knicks had last summer, right? The choice was, do you go all in for Donovan Mitchell and trade a bunch of first-round picks and sacrifice a bunch of your assets to get him, or do you wait and try to keep building your team until you get to a place where you could trade for him? Now, I really like the trade for the Cavs at the time because they have Evan Mobley, they have Jared Allen, they have Darius Garland.
Let's be clear.
All
good. And if you think I've sold one share of my Evan Mobley stock because of 4 okay playoff games to blah playoff games, I'm got all of it. I'm riding out the stock price. I didn't do any insider trading with my Evan Mobley stock ahead of the series. I got it all.
Evan Mobley's going to be a great player. I don't think there's any question about that. He'll be just fine. But my only point about that was, like you said, the Cavs traded just about everything they had to get Donovan Mitchell. And so, like, yeah, I'm sure the Cavs will look. I mean, it's not like you and I are the first people to talk about the fact the Cavs don't have a fifth guy, right? The Cavs wing position, the threes position, is probably the single weakest position of any playoff team this year. Like, everybody could see that, including the Cavs.
Imagine if they just got to rent Torrey Craig from the Suns for every game. Yeah. Torrey Craig would be like a revelation on the Cavs. And in Phoenix, it's like, is Torrey Craig good enough to be the fifth guy? On the Cavs, they'd throw a freaking parade because Torrey Craig was on their team.
And to your point, right? This is the problem that they're in. Like, they have Karis LeVert in an expiring deal. They almost have to sign him no matter what this summer just to have the body available either to trade him or do something with him later, because they can't replace him if he leaves. And they because they traded everything for Donovan, they're in a spot where they just don't have a lot of stuff to add that fifth guy. And that's going to be the challenge for Kobe Altman and their front office going forward, is with the limited assets they have, where can they find on the margins the guys that can fill in around them to make this team deep enough to take the next step forward. Now, the other thing they're going to need is Evan Mobley, to me, has to take a massive step forward this summer, which he's very capable of doing. He's a hugely talented player, but they need him to take a step forward. So some of these issues are mitigated by him stretching out as a shooter, by him becoming a little bit better, handling the ball in the short roll, doing these things that would help unlock their offense a little bit. And they've got to find a way to add that little bit of depth so that when they're playing a team like the Knicks, it's not just, well, we're going to play 4-on-5 and just pretend whoever this other player is, we're just going to pretend they're not there, because that's not going to be good enough in the playoffs.
Evan Mobley is 21 years old. If you want to be one of the people on Twitter mocking Evan Mobley enthusiasm, you go ahead. Just bookmark the tweets and talk to me in 3 years about your Evan Mobley skepticism. You mentioned LeVert. Brunson spent a lot of the first couple games guarding LeVert, hiding, trying to hide on LeVert. And the Cavs exploited that by using LeVert in a lot of different ways. Part of the problem with LeVert is when they try and use him as a ball handler, he's just so scattershot that he has, I think, 9 assists the whole series in 4 games. He's just sort of an unreliable, a little bit.
He's a very inconsistent. He's a very inconsistent player, right? Like I've seen him score. I feel like I've seen him score 50 points against the Celtics 5 times. Whenever he plays the Celtics, he looks like an all-NBA player. But he's just a very inconsistent shooter and scorer. And there's some games when he looks great, and there's some games when he looks really bad. And, it's hard to rely on that guy as the 5th guy in a playoff series. And he's also, a bit of a liability at the other end too. So, I mean, it's just sort of emblematic of their issues where they just can't. All these guys have a significant flaw, and it's very difficult to figure out what the right matchup is, which is why JB Bickerstaff has been trying 100 different things. And as you correctly pointed out, when those 4 guys are on the court, the Cavs look great. And when any one of them is off the court, it doesn't look as good.
If given what I just said about LeVert, if Brunson is on Garland again, I think they need to lean even more into Mitchell Garland 2-man game. See what they want to do, the Knicks, when Brunson is faced with a switch on Donovan Mitchell or hedge and rotation. I think they need to do a little bit more of that. We'll see what happens in game 5. This one is not one of the ones I'm writing off as an over series. We are, however, Mr. Bontemps, getting close to Philly, Boston. Credit to the Hawks. I just want to say credit to the Hawks. I said last week they didn't look like they belonged on the same court as Boston in the first 2 games. Show me something in Atlanta. They showed out in Atlanta. They won game 3, shot the hell out of it. They pushed Boston to the limit almost in game 4 and lost. And it was a nice effort, but we're almost there. You ready for that one? Because that's the one. This second round, we got some mega series coming up.
We certainly do, especially this Celtics-Sixers series where there's a lot on the line. We'll see where Joel Embiid is at the end of the week. Hopefully the big fella's feeling better with his sprained knee and is able to go. But yeah, look, I mean, I've been waiting all year to cover Celtics-Sixers. This has been these teams have been on a collision course since the summer, and there's a ton of history there, both past and present. So I think the 3rd or 4th time Joel Embiid has played them in the playoffs. They've obviously played many, 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 many times over the years. It's, there's just a ton at stake on both sides. And, like you said, in a second round where there's going to be some real mega series, I don't think there's going to be one with bigger stakes than that one when it gets going. And like I said, I just really hope that Joel is able to go full go, because he's spent all year hoping to be healthy when the playoffs came around. And if he has that derailed by another fluky landing on a attempted contest of a shot, it would just be really unfortunate.
We'll have to talk more about that series going forward when it gets
there will be time for that, I think.
Tim Bontemps, you got to go do some television. Thank you for making some time. I will see you somewhere in an arena, probably next week, whether it's the world's most famous arena or whatever they call the Sixers arena now, or somewhere. I'll see you around, buddy.
I'm sure you will, man. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.